Good afternoon. I'm really happy to welcome you for this last DI session. Today we will have Serge Abiteboule with us. Before giving him the floor, I will introduce him briefly. So Serge Abiteboule has been a researcher at INRIA, the only public research body fully dedicated to computational sciences. He's been there for more than 30 years. He's now a distinguished affiliated professor at ENS Cachan. He also has been a chair professor at Collège de France and became a member of Academy of Science in 2008 and a member of Academy of Europe in 2011. His work mainly focuses on data, information, knowledge management, especially on the web. And he has recently started a blog about computer science. So now I will give the floor to Serge. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the organization of the talk that's going to be on personal information management system and personal knowledge. And there are essentially two parts in the talk. The first part is based on a paper that I wrote with Benjamin André and Daniel Kaplan to appear in Communications of the SCM. And it's kind of an interesting story. Benjamin André is the CEO of a startup that's doing personal information management system. And Daniel Kaplan is the chair of the FING, which is a think tank in France that's really one of the front fighter for the data privacy and data control by the person. So the first part of the talk is going to be talking about protecting your own data. And the second part, I'm going to turn to my personal research in ERC project called Webdam on knowledge. And essentially the thesis would be that you should turn from personal information to personal knowledge. But let's get started. Everybody will agree with that. You know, you see that every day in the newspapers, but moreover, most of you are confronted with that on a daily basis. We have data in all kinds of form, and that's increasing every day. So that's obvious. The second thing that's very obvious is that the data is more and more dispersed on many computers, on many systems, on many devices. And if you think about the good old days where you had all your data on a single computer, these were the good old days. When you're looking for a piece of information, it was very simple. You had something like a Google desk search or some kind of global search on your computer and you would find it. Now you cannot do that. Why? Because you don't even know where this piece of information is. You don't know the system, you don't know the device. The last line is very important also. You have probably data that you're not even aware of that's about you. And you know, you're spied all the time. Data is very heterogeneous, and as we know in computer science, when everything is clean and uniform and regular, it's very easy to handle. When you start having heterogeneity, it starts becoming a zoo, and you get totally lost. So that's a bad news. But maybe you shouldn't care, but in fact you care. And you care for these kind of reasons. The first one is because of the fact that the data is in different silos, you lose functionality. I talked already about search, but another one would be that sometimes you want to do some very simple task, like write a few sentences, and then you want to have these 2 lines published in a tweet and on your blog and sent by mail to some friends. Sounds to something very obvious to do, but it's not, because basically there are 3 different systems: the mail system, the blog system, the tweet system. These are different systems, and you have to sequence operations, and basically you are not a guru in writing complicated workflow talking to these different systems. Second thing is you're losing control about of your data. That everybody agree with that. Your private information is leaking all the time, and loss of freedom. This is perhaps less repeated, but that's something that happens all the time. So just an example, I had a blog for a long time with a blogger, and at some point I was invited to do my blog in the Le Monde newspaper, and of course it's much more prestigious to have a blog in Le Monde than in Blogger. So I'd like to say, oh, okay, I'll move my blog. That's not possible, okay? Of course, it's possible if you're a good hacker and you spend a couple of days, I'm going to do it, or if you do it by hand, article by article. But if you really want to do it automatically, not possible, okay? If you have a mailer and you want to move all your mail to a different mailer, complicated. And all the time you have things like that. If you are used to your Google phone, or sorry, you're used to your iPhone, you would like to go to Android, complicated. Everything is complicated. That's vendor lock-in. Okay, so here are some alternatives for you. The first one is, okay, let's continue like that. And, let's not do anything, and, it's going to be more and more frustrating, and I'm going to pay a shrink, and that's okay. The second thing, which is very tempting, is to say, okay, the difficulty comes from the fact that I have data on different platforms. What if I choose one? Okay, what if we decide together today that there is a winner, Facebook, and we put all our data on Facebook, everything, okay, contacts, emails, whatever. Facebook would be very happy. Would you be very happy with that? No, because basically you're going to be even more locked into a single vendor, and you're going to need a shrink as well. Third solution, become a shrink. So you must have some friends who are actually very picky about managing their old data. You probably have some friends, I do, who are completely paranoid about their privacy and so on, and they handle everything. They have their own system, they have their own computers, they don't trust Gmail, they don't trust Facebook, they don't trust anything. You can do that, okay? And then you get to a shrink to survive the experience. I mean, 99% of the population will have to survive the experience. And of course, that's what I'm going to talk about. There is the other way, which is a personal information management system way. Okay, so the PIMs. And that gets us to the first part of the talk and the first thesis. We should regain control of our information, and one way to do it, I mean, for the moment, the only way I know to do it, or the only way I want to do it, is the PIMs way. So what is a PIMs? As I already used several times this term, and probably you don't know the term, or you've heard it, or heard some different terms that have the same meaning. It's a personal information management system, and to understand it, let's go back to what makes a success of a service on the web. So what's the success of Dropbox, to take one, okay? So first of all, it's some great software. So somebody really took the time to understand what it means to share documents over the internet and make it available everywhere in the world using the cloud perspective, okay? So that's some great software. And the people were very smart, and they developed extremely nice and successful and practical software. That's the first thing. The second thing is machines. So to run this software, they bought these machines, and they put these machines somewhere, and they're running this very nice software on their machine. And there is a business model. Dropbox is for free. When you get to a certain amount of data, they make you pay. A lot of the services are actually made based on the business model that consists in monetizing your personal information, whatever. But they usually is this combination, great software, sets of machines, a form of machine, and a business model. So let's separate the two first facets, which is you will have some companies that will provide the software, but you will run the software on your own machine, or to be a little bit more generous, to a machine that you control, and we'll come back to that. Okay? So that's the idea of the PIMs. Take the good software so that you get the same great experience, but you run it on your own machine so that you control what's going on. And the main issue is not a technical issue. The issue is a business model. Okay. Tomorrow morning, these companies you know, like, I don't know, Amazon, for instance, would be able to deliver this kind of software, but this is not the business model they like. Okay. Okay, so let's dig in a little bit into this idea. The user starts by selecting a server, and that's his or her server. So this is the idea of you own this machine, okay? Maybe you pay for it, maybe it's your own machine, maybe you run it in your place. That's kind of irrelevant. You want it a single machine, you want it a distributed machine, you want it a virtual machine, physical, I don't care. What I care is that you're paying for it and you are in charge. You decide what runs on this machine, what does not run on this machine, what the machine does, because this is your machine, okay? And of course, the last line is important. You want the machine to run on the cloud or the service to run on the cloud because, you know, we don't want to be bothered. I want to be here in Nantes and get access to my information. I don't want the system to say, well, if you want to get your contact, you have to go back to Paris. So that's the first thing. The application software, that doesn't matter. I have to choose it. I'll choose the application software. I prefer if this software is open source. Why? Because I know what it's doing. But that's arguable. Maybe it's religious. But personally, I prefer open source. And the bottom line is my data is on my machine. And that's a big difference. Okay? Instead of having my data being on 50 different clouds or 50 different systems, all my data is on my machine. We can be a little bit more tolerant for that. You know, I really like, I don't know, some Google service. So fine, you know, I'm going to use this Google service, and of course, by the virtue and by the business model of Google, they're going to have my data. But I require one thing. I require that I also have my data. This is my data, okay? So whatever data some service is keeping for me, I'd like to get the same in my personal information management system, in my PIMs. So if we go there, again, as I said, the main point is the business model, but we'll talk about that later. What I want to focus on now is a little bit 5 minutes on the two technical parts that may scare you a little bit, which are security and system administration. Okay, is this going to make security lower quality? Well, first of all, there is this thing that it's very hard to be riskier for my data than the actual system, because the actual system, my data is I don't know where, controlled by I don't know whom, and basically governed by some laws that I signed but I didn't read. Okay, so can I do worse than that? It's difficult, but that's not comforting. The second part is, yes, somebody is going to be in charge of the security, but I'm not a security expert. So who is going to be in charge of the security? The operator of my PIMs. So my PIMs is going to be operated by someone, professional operator, and the operator will be in charge of verifying the applications, controlling the application, actually monitoring them. Even if I'm using some external service, the PIMs can act on my behalf and check what the other service is doing. Okay? So that's good news. So that's on the positive side. On another side, which is positive but more bizarre, it's like, yeah, that's going to be less tempting for pirates. Because if the pirates get in my PIMs, who cares? I mean, you know, I have to be a bit modest. Nobody really is going to put a lot of energy in breaking into my personal information management system because there aren't so many interesting things in there. On the other hand, people are going to be interested in breaking into Facebook, because if they're breaking into Facebook, it's not one person, but it's like 500 million persons that they're going to break in. So again, this is not an answer. I don't think I convinced you, and I don't claim I convinced even myself that I solved the security issues. But what I claim is that it's better than it was. I'm not saying I have a solution. I'm saying we are a little bit better off. Second point is system administration. Okay, first of all, most people have zero competence in system administration, which is okay. I mean, I don't think we should give, I think we should teach students how to program. I think we should teach students lots of things about computers. I don't think we should teach them to become system administrators, okay? Because that's boring. And so they understand, people in general understand very little about access control. For instance, you know, there's been this Google Plus, which is not so complicated. Ask around you. Most of the people will tell you they tried to use a sophisticated access control mechanism in Google Plus, and then they forgot about it, okay? So first thing is people don't understand it, so you should not ask them for much. And you should not also ask them to work much, because basically they're not interested. I mean, people want security, but they don't want to waste time in specifying complicated security policies. So what can the PIMs do for you? It can help you select options, okay? So what is it? It's a system that's going to tell you, well, you know, if you really want high security, I suggest you say yes, yes, and yes to these questions, no, and yes to these questions. You know, what's so different is what you have now. What's so different is that the PIMS is on your side. You're paying for it. It's your system. It's defending your interest. When you go to an external system and start choosing access control options, keep in mind that their interest is to get as much data of yours as they can and to do as much with them as they can. So their interest is that you be completely open with respect to access control, and very often you don't even realize it. There are like options that you're not even asked that essentially open your data to zillions of people. So basically the PIMS is going to help you. Okay, so now we're getting a little bit into the main issue, which is the issue of business model. And I'm going to try to convince you. I tried to convince myself first, and now I'm going to try to convince you that this is arriving, which I really hope it will arrive, but you know, what do I know? So we're going to look at that from three different angles: society, technology, and industry. Society. So first of all, this is going to arrive if people want it to arrive. So if people are happy with the actual system, what's the point? Now, people are not happy. If you look around you, there is a growing resentment. And there are resentment at two levels. First, against government. You know, people see what the NSA and the European government are doing with private data, and you know, many people don't like it. So, are they going to do something against it? Probably not. So probably they're going to mumble, "I don't like that. I don't like, you know, like the government looking in my emails without asking me or for no reason. I don't like it. I don't like the American government looking in my email. Why should they? Okay, but are they going to do something about it? No, but at least they're not happy. They're not happy also against industry. And just to take examples from here, pricing. The pricing starts being very bizarre. I mean, one of the latest I found is that you buy a ticket, a transportation ticket, you go into the site and start looking for prices, and you get quoted a certain price. If you come back the next day with the same computer, the price has increased. But if you change and go to another computer, the price has not increased. There's something completely flawed. I mean, you shouldn't become an expert and start changing machine to buy tickets. Okay, that's something that's completely wrong. And also sometimes you may get advertisement that seems, maybe it's paranoia. You look and say, well, why do they send me this article? You know, why do they send me this advertisement? They know so much about me. So people are really getting worried about that. Growing resentment. Second thing is people are understanding better what's going on, and they're really understanding that they're losing this fight for data. They're losing it because more and more their partner, the services they're using, are getting more and more data about them, and when they want to get their data, it's complicated in the best case, and sometimes they can't even get it. Okay? And that's very frustrating. And also there is this value that you start seeing. I don't really like the idea that you're going to make money with your Facebook data or with your Google queries. I find that a bit stupid. I'm sorry if some of you are for this kind of thing. But still, people start understanding that their personal data has value. I mean, if they fight so much to get it, it must have some value. Also, you now realize that you have, for instance, quantified self-data, and should be able to do something about it. Okay, so that's people understanding. Regulations, society is ready to move. Let's continue. You know, in Europe, more than in the US, people are starting talking about regulations. We have in France, for instance, laws for protecting databases, and this is moving on, and Europe in general is going towards more and more regulation on this. But there are ideas also that got a lot of attention. One of them that I really like is a vendor relationship management. So you must have heard about customer relationship management, which is a business company wants to see together in the system all the information they know about their customers, and that helps them do some analysis, have a global view, also get easier, much faster information about a particular customer. Same thing, look at your point of view. You're in front of many vendors, and it'd be nice if you could get in one system all the information that you have about the different vendors that are vending you things. So you can, for instance, follow how much you're spending for food, how much you're spending for leisure, whatever. So this is the idea of vendor relationship management. And think about it, this is not easy to get. Okay, well, of course, you can start an Excel spreadsheet and start filling in, but that's not what you want. You'd like automatically to have access to all this information in some kind of integrated manner. So there are people who started working on that. If you look, there are many European or associations or any kind of reports and proposals that keep telling that, oh, you know, you own your personal data and this should be recognized. And to conclude this part, there are a number of initiatives everywhere in different places about personal data disclosure. So I'll speak about Mesinfo in France, but there's same thing with smart disclosure in the US or my data in UK. So essentially there are companies that get together like network operators, banks, retailers, and they decide that inside the system they're going to put all their information about the customers available to the customer. This is a revolution, okay? This is a real revolution. Your bank, which is used to send you perhaps some information in PDF in the bad case, or some information in some kind of web interface in the best case, is willing to actually load all the data they have on you in your personal information system. But that's your data. What's wrong with that? Okay. It's wrong because they don't have anything to gain except to please you. But you see, inside things like mesinfo.org, they start doing it. Okay, technology. I'm going to go a bit faster. One point that's important in this setting is system administration that used to be extremely gory, and that's getting way, way simpler. There is more and more open source technology for lots of cool services that you'd like to have. So for instance, I mentioned sharing files in a distributed manner the Dropbox way. You can find some open core software for that. There is something that's very important, is the price of machines is going down. So if you go, you can buy a machine for almost nothing, but you don't want to buy a machine, install it, run it, and so on. What's interesting is you can actually buy a server hosted by someone for very cheap. I mean, for instance, for a few months, there was a service by OVH in France that was proposing a low-cost server for €5 a month. €5 a month, that's, people start thinking, maybe I'll pay for that. If you ask around, nobody is ready to pay €50 or $50 a month for having a better security. $5 a month for the control of their information, yes, why not? Okay, I'm not going to go into this list, but I wanted to show here is that there are lots of research projects, lots of startups, lots of technology on some aspects, on the entire aspect that is being developed. You start having some system that you can buy and install reasonably simply, which allow you to do these kind of things. Again, I'm not saying it's done. It still requires too much work by the individual. It still does not have all the functionalities you would expect, but it's going in the right direction. Last but not least, industry, the third angle. So why would companies be interested by this kind of approach? Why do they care? The main point is that they have been, these main companies, pre-digital companies, they have been disintermediated from their customers. So more and more the customers go through the web, and they go through these services that, Booking, for instance, Amazon in the book industry. So basically, if you're a book editor, between you and your customers, there is this thing now, Amazon. And that's big. I mean, it's not like it's like soon a majority of the books that you're printing is going to go through there, which means that the contact you have with your customer is gone. So the knowledge in business is if you don't have contacts with your customer, you soon become a commodity. And basically, the main guy is going to be the guy in between. Why isn't that the case in PIMs? Because PIMs is like a neutral field. It's not another company. PIMs is the user. PIMs is the land of the user. So on this ground, the user does not have interest to give a preference to one company over another. Everybody can play the same game. So these pre-digital companies that have somewhat lost the fight on the web because basically they didn't control enough the new technology, they didn't have as nice interfaces, they didn't have as practical services. They tried to put up sites to sell books, but basically it was not as convenient, it was certainly not as nice, they didn't have good recommendations, whatever. For many reasons, they're out of the game. In a PIMS, they can go in, and on a neutral ground, they can come and propose their services. So that's first big load of companies that are interested by this approach, which are all the companies that want to go back close to their customers. And the PIMS is the customer. Second class of companies are our home appliances companies. The one I know best, perhaps, is the one that sell you like TV boxes. So what's a TV box? A TV box is a computer that's installed at your place and that can store data. Typically, it stores movies, things like that, but it could store all your information if you wanted to. So nothing would prevent them from actually putting on their box your personal information management system. It has a nice aspect to it, which is it's in your place, so you feel that you have data under your control. But that's crap. I mean, really, you want your data to be in the cloud, so it's not really important that the machine is in your place or it's outside, because in any case, it will have to be replicated for security reasons outside. So that's irrelevant. But the thing that's relevant for these companies is they already have a contract with you. You already have a contract with your TV box. And so you trust the TV box because you have this contract and you trust it more than a web company on which you never read the contract because it was 20 pages long in footnote size, and of course you didn't care. So they could come into this business, and actually many of them are really interested. And a side effect of it is that they are at your place, and they could also help with the next big thing, which is going to be the control of your Internet of Things. Okay, you're going to have more and more devices, and all these devices will have more and more information, and then you're going to get in this problem, like besides all the machines that I mentioned, you're going to have all these things that you'll have to control. We have to look at pure Internet players. Now, that's a bit touchy, because these are the guys who don't want this to happen. Now, if we look at it a little bit abstractly, they have the know-how. I mean, a company like Amazon, they really know, or Salesforce, they really have the know-how in providing services. So these companies would be the best companies to support these kind of services. The problem, also second point in favor of this, is that these companies are mostly, for some of them, in the information business. Okay, a company like Facebook or Google, if you look at what they do, they're talking about information. Okay, they're caring about information. They're caring about your information as well. So they cannot really stay out. So the temptation for them is, if I cannot stay out, I got to kill that thing. And why would they kill it? It's because it's very far from their business model. This is very far from a personal advertisement. It's very far from monetizing your personal data. So I've had, pretty serious negative reactions to this kind of approach by people from these companies because, come on, that's how are they going to make money on it? Yes, that's, I would say, their problem. Okay, this can arrive, this is going to arrive, and the question is, it's going to arrive if you get interest in it. I mean, new technology on the web, you never adopt it if it's not for some killer application, for something it allows you to do that you couldn't do before. So let's look for a minute at what you can do with this technology that you couldn't do before. Rebalance the web. That's a bit abstract, but the idea is that you could get better control over your data, and as I said, there is this imbalance between the data you have about yourself and about these companies and the data they have about you. Now, in a way, you're going to control this balance better. The user will be empowered. Choose the services they like, choose the companies they like. And that's a bit abstract again. The idea is that it's going to build a web that's more neutral. Quite a number of people are worried about the directions of the web. Okay, there was the glorious principles of the beginning are a bit on the dark side now. You find more and more bad practices, imbalanced competitions, and things like that. It's getting unfair. I mean, how can you compete with a big company that has so much data about every person? It's going to get hard. But I don't think this is the main reason why the PIMs will survive or will succeed. The main reasons are here for me. It's not because people are not going to move to a new service because you tell them you're building a better humanity for humanity. It's better for humanity. Like you will find like 5% perhaps of leaders, we will say, oh yeah, that's what I want. But the wide majority of the population is just too busy with surviving every day, and they look at the simplest thing and the things they like, okay? So this is, I believe, the reasons that will make us move to this new technology. The first, this is because you're going to get some new functionalities. Back to the previous example I took, I want to be able to do a search on all my information. I want to be able to tell my system, hey, I went with Gérard Berry to a restaurant 3 months ago or 4 months ago. It was raining. What was the name of the restaurant? How do you find these kind of things? By integrating the data you have in your contacts with the data you have in your mailer, with the data you have in your I don't know, the information from your positioning system with your GPS and so on. By merging all this and by getting information to the web, you get all this information because you have integrated all your information and turned it into knowledge, semantics. So that's getting us close to the second part of the talk. Synchronization and backups. Yeah, for me, it's getting a pain to synchronize all this data. And each time I have a new service, it's getting more complicated. Access control, management over different services. I have to tell 10 services that Gérard is a friend and he should see my information. I want to see it once. I don't want to repeat and repeat and repeat. I want to be able to sequence tasks, do workflows. Okay? I want to do simple workflows. I can specify with a graphic interface simple workflows, which is I have this editor, I type a text, it goes there and there and there. And I want to do that, and I don't need to be, a PhD from a university in computer science plus 5 years Hackerland to do that, okay? Or 5 years Hackerland to do that. Task sequencing, exchange of information with my friends. That's, as I said, the next step. How do I control all the connected objects that I own. And the last thing is my personal data. That's not big data, although it's semi-big if you want. But I'd like to do analysis with it. I mean, why should Facebook do analysis with my data, or Google, or whatever? Everybody does analysis about my data and find great things to monetize about it. Why can't I do analysis about my data and find small things that will make my life better? Okay? So I want to do data analysis, but in my personal data. And to do that, this is impossible today because there is no place that has your personal data. Okay. Second part of the talk, we're getting quickly to from information to knowledge. But we already touched about it. To be able to do the integration of all this information, now we're getting into really my personal research and what I like to do these days. Up to now, this was more like a political or semi-political agenda. But we already addressed the issue. If I want to be able to do that, I need to integrate all the information I have from all these different devices and all these different systems and all these different clouds and so on. So how am I going to do that? I can do integration only if I have put a semantic layer. So I have to move out of information and put a semantic layer on top of it. I have to work into knowledge. So in a way, I am mimicking the evolution of the web. I have to go from the web to the semantic web. Here I have to go to my personal information management system to a personal knowledge management system. Okay, so this, the second thesis is we should turn the web into a distributed knowledge base where all these systems will handle knowledge and exchange knowledge. And the fundamental reasons for that is, we cannot do it anymore. I mean, I cannot do it anymore. I could hardly, manage 3 or 4 systems. Now I'm something like 20. Soon it's going to be 50, 100. I cannot do that. So all the technology is there for the machines to do the work for me. Okay. I don't want to go and search in 10 systems. I want the machine to do it for me. But the machines, they can do it only if they are manipulating knowledge. If they are manipulating text or information or sound or images, they're not going to do it. So basically, we have to move to a world of knowledge. And that's exactly what I just said. If you want to integrate information sources, it's easier to integrate knowledge than information. If you want services automatically collaborate, it's easier if they collaborate by exchanging knowledge than information. And if you want to solve a problem, then it's easier to solve the problem if you can use inference. Otherwise, the machine is not going to do it. Okay? Otherwise, you'll have to think about all the problems or all the desires or all the needs of all the individuals and write code for that, out of our control. So essentially, we have to empower the user so that they'll be able to understand knowledge and to see this exchange of knowledge between the machines. Here, just a small digression. Where can you find knowledge? Here are a number of things. The basic knowledge you can find in encyclopedia, but if you look in systems, in recommendation systems, you have knowledge also. Databases give you knowledge. Social networks, there are lots of knowledge in my interaction with friends. But of course, this knowledge is, in a way, put into textual form. It's not so different than knowledge in encyclopedia. In encyclopedia, it's text. But all the knowledge is there. You just have to go and get it, okay? It's the same thing when I interact with my friends by emails. All the knowledge is there, but it's in text. You have to go and extract it. And in the crowd also. And the prime, the knowledge is in the form of text. So you can edit knowledge with human beings. It's going to be boring and rarely done, except in scientific fields, for instance. You can extract knowledge from machines, and we're getting good at that. Okay, we're getting good because it's not so difficult to process large volumes of text, because we're getting better at text understanding. If you're asking me how do you translate a text from French to English, I say, well, look at Google Translate. It's okay, but it's not too good. Now, if you tell me how do you find where Napoleon was buried, I said this is very easy to find on the internet. You just have, like a few patterns, for saying, how do you say is buried in, and you know the person, you know the places, you do pattern matching over the internet, and you're going to find that. You can actually, you know that it's in Wikipedia, you're going to find it in Wikipedia. Very easy. So the problem is much less difficult than the problem of translating from one language to another. It's extracting knowledge from text. And we know that. How do you integrate knowledge? There have been lots of works on that. We start understanding that. It's not finished. There are lots of research, but we already know how to do it. So we can use this technology to extract knowledge, your personal knowledge from your personal information. From your mail, from your Facebook account, from the annotations you put on pictures, you can extract knowledge. And then, once you extract knowledge, you put it in a knowledge system, and you can do inference and so on. I'm not saying it's easy. One difficulty is the fact that the knowledge is in different systems. You have to align it, complicated. You have to do inference, distributed inference. That's complicated, but that's doable. The bottom line here is that you don't want to do it yourself. You want the machines to do it, and the machine can do it. Okay, so that's a thesis. We should turn the web into a distributed knowledge base with machines, systems storing machine, producing knowledge, extracting knowledge, reasoning, exchanging knowledge. And for that, we need a language for distributed knowledge reasoning. And we worked on that, but here is the requirement we took. First of all, we want distribution. We don't want to start with the idea that somebody will get all the knowledge and that's the end of it. Okay? We don't want to start by saying one company will win everything and store all the knowledge, all the information of the world. We don't think it's a nice future. So we assume the knowledge is distributed between many systems. We want to control privacy. I don't think it's, you see like glorious statements like privacy is dead. People don't care about privacy. Kids don't care about privacy. That's completely bogus. Kids care about privacy as much as we do, and privacy is not dead. So essentially, should be clear also from the beginning of this talk, privacy is a strong issue because we have lots of experience in maintaining privacy on centralized system. In distributed system, the field is rather new. And probabilities. We didn't talk about this, but it's a lot of my research, so I want to mention that for one transparency. Once you deal with something scientific, there are facts. Okay, there are things. There is a truth and not the truth. When you're in a social network, the truth is very problematic. No, Alice is a nice girl. Yes, somebody thinks she's nice, but somebody thinks she's not. Alice is in London. That's the truth. I mean, Alice is in a single place. I mean, being nice is an opinion, so you could have different opinion. Being in London is not an opinion. She's in London or she's not. But if you ask your social network, where is Alice, you're going to find some people who say Alice is in London, some people who are going to say Alice is in Paris. What do? You have to live with inconsistencies. And inconsistencies can arise for many different reasons. One of them is that when you ask the question about Alice, you talked about a certain Alice, and some people are talking about another Alice. They can also talk about something that Alice was planning to go to London. She told everybody she's going to London, but at the last minute she decided not to go. Or maybe she lied. Maybe she said, I'm going to go to London, but in fact she's in Paris. You don't know, but you have to live with this inconsistency. And the way we measure these uncertainties, we do it the best way I know, which is with probabilities. So you have to go from data to knowledge, from centralized to distributed, and from sure facts to possible probable facts. And that's fun. That's called research. And that's the goal we set up. We try to develop a knowledge representation language for managing and reasoning with distribution, access control, which I forgot as a goal, and probabilities. So we are working on such a language. We call it Webdam Log. And I'm going to go in 5 minutes on it. Actually, even less. So just basically, I'm going to, since we are running a bit out of time, I'm going to just flash you the slides. You can get the papers. There are quite a number of papers that have been written on it, so you can get all the details if you're interested. The first thing is we started with data log. Data log is the logical part of Prolog, for those of you who know Prolog. For those of you who don't, this is the ultimate example in data log. It's how you specify transitive closure. Now, it's a great language for specifying transitive closure, but you couldn't do much with it. So we had to extend it. And actually, that's very interesting. It's a language that was invented in the 90s that totally disappeared at some point. So we are quite very few to study it in the beginning of this century. And there is a revival. There's been a revival essentially because of guys like Joel Osteen who showed that you could do beautiful things with it. And so just to show you flashes of it, a piece of information is like a statement, a predicate, but what's different is here you have you always talk about a principle. So this is not family in general, but this is the relation family in a particular principle, which is Alice, or this is the agenda as on Alice's iPhone. And there are three, I missed that point. There are three novelties: delegation, distributed access control, and probabilities. Just to give you an example, these are the rules. So they are like extended data log rules. Extended because now you may have variables in the relation or in the principle in the head. And this is actually, this single rule allows you to send happy birthday messages depending on the preferences of the people. So if somebody likes to do it with, for instance, Manon, with my daughter, she's using Gmail and she likes to receive, I send her happy birthday messages by email, then I use this fact, but I would have another fact that will send somebody else a happy birthday message by SMS, by text over the telephone. Could use also a voicemail. You could also use Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Basically, with just this rule and this kind of fact of a relations, you can essentially choose what you're doing. And you can choose by using distributed services. That's the name of the game. You want to use distributed services. And delegation allows you to do distributed computing and also to give knowledge to people. So say I'm discovering a new service, Picasa. I've never used Picasa, but if I want to use Picasa, how am I going to use it? Of course, today, Picasa is going to upload to my computer a program that I cannot look at, that's unreadable, and that's lines of code and lines of code. In our setting, Picasa will upload a few rules that I should be able to understand. And I skip access control because we are running out of time, and I'd like to spend some time on the conclusion. So the two theses of this talk is we should regain control of our information, and furthermore, we should move from information to knowledge, and they are really very tightly connected. And as a researcher, I'm very happy because there are lots of research issues that come out of that. I'm going to mention some research issues that are in a very premature stage, if some people are looking for thesis topics. One, there is this difficulty that the web is open. We're used in databases to ask a query and get an answer because the data is there. When you want some information on the web, in your social network, it's difficult because where you don't have the information, it's not on your computer. It may be in a different system, you don't know where, and maybe it's not there. I mean, maybe Alice didn't tell anyone where she's going. Okay, so you have to answer, the system has to answer and help you answer this question, where is Alice, even if nobody knows. Okay, the answer nobody knows, we don't have this information on the network. Maybe it's going to take half a day to get this information, or maybe if I wait another 5 hours, maybe I'll get an answer. I don't know. That's an open world. It's kind of interesting change of paradigm. Explanation. That's particularly true when you work with probabilities. You ask a question, the system starts crashing numbers, probabilities, huge expressions and so on, and comes back and say, well, we believe Alice is in London. Yes. And should I believe you? And the computer can be a bit nicer and say, well, from what I know, Alice is in London with 80% probabilities. I'm a little bit happier, okay? No, it's like your telephone telling you that it's going to rain with 80% probability. It's more information that just it's going to rain. But essentially, as a human being in your social network, you want to know why. It's very difficult to explain to you that there are like 50 pages of complicated computation telling you, deciding that she's in London. But what you can do is probably tell you something about, what made this decision most likely, or, where the information that made this decision most likely. And maybe if it says, well, we figured that out because the boyfriend of Alice has a meeting with her for dinner tonight. That's a little bit convincing. So what you need is where the information comes from and how the system got it, which is very important. So that's explanation, and provenance is important as well. Serendipity, there was a talk in the previous session about that, just definition by example, you hear by chance a song, and this song is completely going to obsess you. You didn't ask for it, okay? You just happened to enter an office and the song was playing. You didn't go on Google and search for data and get this song. It was pure luck, pure chance. Now, if we go into systems that are completely hardwired to give you the best recommendation all the time, that's going to be totally boring. So how do you introduce chance? How do you introduce randomness? But again, it's not completely random. The bottom line is that these things you should like. So how are you going to know? How is the system going to know that you're going to like this thing that's so totally different from what you listen to usually? Hyperamnesia, that's also very important, and that's you can read what's in there, but I'll tell you an experience instead while you read it. I was talking to industry, and I'm teaching to my students in industry, in information system, they never delete anything. That's what I was told, okay? They never delete things because they don't know what to delete, and it doesn't cost, and it's not so expensive to store data now. You can buy terabytes for nothing. So they just keep information. Then I talked to some guys in industry, and he said, no, that's wrong. That's not like that. It's costing money to store information. Why? It's not because you have to buy the disk. It's because you have to maintain this information in a lively form. It's because when you ask queries, you'll have to search this information. So no, it's not true that we don't delete. We actually spend a lot of energy and time deleting things. In the same way, our mind spends a lot of time deciding what to forget. And actually, it's essential. It's a very bad disease if you cannot forget things, okay? So how do you select the information you do not keep? It's an interesting research topic. Another thing that I should try to do fast because it's the end of the talk. When you interact with a system, the system is imposing some things on you. It's imposing a vocabulary, it's imposing its ontology, it's imposing its structuring of information. That's totally wrong. I mean, I don't want to learn 20 different ways of organizing information. I don't want to learn 20 different terminologies. I don't want to learn 20 different ways of structuring information. The system should adapt to me. And that is, I think, one of the challenges, and again, there is also an issue of business because their interest is to keep you captured. The interest of the business in front of you is that you want to come back and you don't want to go to another system. So they want to capture you by forcing you. And some companies are extremely good in making you totally a slave of their technology by essentially making it extremely difficult to get used to something else. Okay? So that's bad. And last but not least, if you think about history, knowledge used to be determined by religion, then, don't know if it's progress or not, but knowledge started being determined scientifically, and we don't want to get to the next level of evolution where knowledge is not going to be determined by science, but it's going to be determined by some machines. And welcome to the digital world where we'll be surrounded by machines that will do things for us. And the question is, what are we going to do with this technology? And I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Serge, for this wonderful talk. So do we have any questions? This is the last session. This is also your last chance to ask questions.
And thank you for those who stayed for the last session. Question there.
So any questions? Yes, one.
On the left.
Here.
Thank you for your talk. I have a question about the first part, which many of the problems you pinpoint were related to the client-server technology. So is there any way to think about a personal information system management or personal information knowledge system, which is run on the peer-to-peer technology, for example? And what do you think about the future of peer-to-peer technology?
It's an excellent question, and to make it even sharper, can we get rid of these big companies? I don't know. There have been attempts, for instance, to develop search engines in a peer-to-peer mode. There are attempts, moderately successful, to do some social networks in a peer-to-peer mode. Yes, eventually, why not? The question is not really that. The question is, people so far are very happy with the software they're given. I mean, I personally love Google search engine. I don't like the advertisement around and so on, but I love the search. And when they will continue giving me this good search without messing too much with their advertisement, I'll probably continue using it. The day where they stop, I'll move to something else, and I'll move to a peer-to-peer, or I'll move to another service. I don't care. Actually, I don't think people care about the technology. They care about the functionality. So if they use Facebook and not Diaspora, for instance, that's because Facebook is a great experience, and that's because all their friends are on Facebook. If a peer-to-peer system manages to give you a great experience and manages to bring hundreds of millions of people, nobody cares. They will go there. The problem is, so far, the experience is not as great.
Okay.
Gérard?
Gérard.
You can speak.
You convinced me I need a PIM, so how do I get one?
Okay.
I'm totally convinced, and I'm happy to get it whenever it's possible.
Okay, so I'll give you two answers. So I'll give you one answer, and then I'll tell you what I do personally. So the marketing answer is I mentioned the paper on PIMs with one of the authors is Benjamin André. So you can get a PIMs supported by a system which is called Cozy Cloud. It's a cloud system. It's a beautiful system, and it's running. So you can do that tonight. And I can even introduce you to Benjamin. He's a very fantastic guy. Second part of the answer is, Serge, are you using a PIMS? And the answer is no. Why? Because I'm lazy, and I'm not an early developer, an early adapter of technology. So if you're an early adopter of technology, it's clearly the time. Okay. If you're like me, you prefer stable. I really hate it when the system I'm using has a bug, or when I want to do something and it's not available, and so on. So I'm probably going to wait 6 months or a year before I get to that technology. So it really depends on whether you are a little bit hacker. Today, you have to be not a good hacker, but you really have to be a little bit inclined to spend time writing a bit of code. So as I said, it's coming. I didn't say yet, hey guys, it's here. So I don't know, maybe 1/3 of the people in the room can, the younger one and you, Gérard, can use it.
I take advantage of having my microphone. So isn't it way too late for us? Like we have hundreds of servers having all our personal data on them already. So how can you deal with that?
So there are two questions. If you're worried about the fact that they have your data, there's nothing I can do about it. They have your data. Now, if you're saying, is it going to be more complicated to shift because they already have your data? The answer is yes. The thing is the fact that you are using the longer you're using a service, the more data they have about you, and you are a bit prisoner of that service, and that is true. There is nothing I can do about it. So it's going to take a little bit of effort. So for instance, I have lots of things on Gmail. Not my mail, I use INRIA mail, but on Gmail I have my contact and my agenda. And I like that, because first of all, I like the way the service, the way it is. So what I'd love my PIMs to negotiate with Gmail that they keep my agenda, they keep my contact, but I have access to this information so I can also get a copy on it, synchronized copy. And I think when enough of us will have PIMs, we are in a better position to go to the big guys and say, hey, Gmail, this is my data. Could you please give it also to me? I stay with you. I like you. And actually, I like the service. I'm very happy with it. And, but I'd also want to have my information so that it's mine. And by the way, once you have your information, it makes it easier to move to another service.
Any other question?
In the middle of the room.
Hi, I'm Pascal Molly from University of Nantes.
Bonjour, Pascal.
Bonjour. So I have a question. So I think I'm quite convinced by this approach, but I wonder if I install a personal management system, how I will negotiate with big actors. Do you really think that we will protect our privacy, or maybe we will just sell better quality of personal data? This is maybe, don't you think that the only way to negotiate with them is to negotiate the quality of data we are ready to give them?
Okay, if we do a little bit of science fiction, and if my friend Benjamin succeeds, and he has a PIMS he's a PIMS operator, and he operates a PIM with 500,000 customers, 5 years from now, which I wish he does, he's going to be in great position to negotiate with the service suppliers. Think about it. You're a service supplier, and somebody comes and say, hey, we don't like the way you handle privacy in this particular application, and we propose that you handle it differently. Or, hey, we would like to get access to this information. You have this information about our customers, we want it as well. I think you'd be in a better position, because basically you can always threaten that you're just going to publish on the web, that you discourage people to use their web service, or and actually this can turn as discouragement not only for your customers but for everybody. You may end up being like an authority, because you have spent the time to look at the service, to look at the contract. Hey, if somebody could just look at these contracts and tell us, okay, that would already be very useful. Actually, some associations do, and things like Think, for instance, would look at them and tell you what they think. But okay, it's a bit science fiction, but my answer is yes, I think.
Any last question? No? Okay, thank you again, Serge.
Thank you.
And so everything having an end, this is the end of this conference. And so maybe I will do what I said in my first speech, that is to thank a number of people. And by chance, I have the list with me. And then I will give the I will give the micro to Sophie, who is going to talk about the next edition. Let's check what we have. Okay, so this conference took many people to put together. And so there are co-organizers, universities like Université Laval, and Sophie Damon is going to talk, and Thierry Béléguic was involved as well. The Cité des Congrès de Nantes with Paul Billaudot, and the Cité des Congrès de Québec with Pierre-Michel Bouchard, Nantes Métropole and Johanna Roland, we've seen yesterday, La Ville de Québec and Julie Lemieux, who was here, and official partners and sponsors, the Nantes Métropole and la Ville de Nantes, le Conseil des régionales des Pays de la Loire, le CNRS, l'INRIA, l'UNAM, certains partenaires académiques, comme on les a appelés, qui sont les universités autour de nous, comme l'Université d'Angers, l'École de design Nantes Atlantique, l'Université de Bretagne occidentale et des laboratoires de l'Université de Nantes comme l'IRSIN et le LINA, ainsi que la Fédération de recherche atlantique. Et puis, comme vous avez pu le voir, Scopitone et Stéréolux, avec qui on a monté l'événement et qu'on a réussi à pas mal intégrer, il m'a semblé. Évidemment, tous les 6 keynote speakers qui nous ont fait plaisir et l'honneur d'être avec nous et j'ai trouvé de nous donner des talks assez fantastiques. Le comité de programme, il y a 53 personnes qui ont participé à la sélection des papiers, ainsi qu'à donner de nombreux conseils sur l'organisation scientifique de la conférence. Les conférences chairs, donc moi-même je ne vais pas me remercier bien sûr, mais Milad Douai qui est parti avant, ainsi que Francky Trichet et Stéphane Roche qui ont été les organisateurs principaux de la conférence. Tous ceux qui ont accepté d'être chair de session également. Et puis le comité d'organisation, où je vais citer un certain nombre de personnes, dont Patrick Lecalé, j'espère qu'il est là, Benoît Furet qui a aussi participé à l'organisation et qui a fait particulièrement un travail énorme mercredi sur le Robotic Day. Tous les robots que vous avez vus, il les a à peu près portés sur son dos. Il est très costaud, mais quand même. Jean-Louis Keronton, Pascal Kunz-Kospérec, de l'Université de Nantes aussi, tous les deux, Yannick Prié également, et puis Jocelyne Leboeuf, ainsi que Elisa Courant de la Cité des Congrès, Emmanuel Elsen de la Cité des Congrès également, ainsi que Jean-François Pilet, Jérôme Gastineau de l'Université de Nantes, Marc Perron de l'Université de Nantes, Sébastien Youinou. Sébastien Youinou qui vous a envoyé à peu près tous les mails que vous avez vus et qui étaient signés de ma main. Et je pense que je vais m'arrêter là. J'ai probablement oublié des gens, j'espère juste qu'ils ne sont pas dans la salle. Et puis je vais laisser la parole à Sophie.
I think they deserve a good end of applause, would you say? These guys have gave us an incredible conference and an incredible experience. It's been a great time here, and again, we are very, very appreciative of that. Next time in Quebec, we will work hard, as you can understand, to give you a great conference. This will happen somewhere between a year and next 12 to 18 months. We will work very closely with our colleagues here at Nantes, but surely with the scientific committee, the organizing committee, to get their very good advice to make sure that the conference continue in the good direction. I will call upon your leadership now very clearly and openly. This is the first of hopefully an important series of conferences. And of course, the quality and the impact of your work is key. It has been demonstrated this week. You are bringing up a new dialogue between different disciplines You are very, very open people. I can tell you, I work as a management of science, and I can see that you guys are particular people with a lot of interest to bridge discipline, to challenge each other. And of course, I truly hope that you will be part of the next edition. We need you, truly need you. We need this type of thinking, very progressive, to understand our world, how it is evolving, and for sure also anticipate and predict what is coming up with all the issues. And you've raised so many technical but also social issues during these 3 days. So be sure that when you receive an email, written digital intelligence, that you need to read it because it's for you very personally, and we're looking upon your contribution for the next round. Quebec City, I don't know, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, it's a city in the province of Quebec. It's where government is, but it is a city that has totally turned around in the last years, known for its diversity, cultural, economic, and its great leadership towards sustainable development, and have been selected in the top 7 of the smart city of the world. So we're very proud of that. We're proud of the leadership of our team and of our leaders, and hope that you can have this opportunity to come and visit and be part of this. So be aware that it's coming, and I don't know what to say more. Of course, if you come, you need to stay, because it's too short, 3 days, so we have great thing to offer to you, a lot of nature, great space, and a lot of opportunity. And you can go to Montreal also, but after. It's an inside joke, I'm sure you understand. We love and enjoy Montreal, but next, after Quebec, of course. So anyway, I hope thank you again, Frédéric, your leadership and everything, and thank you all for this great opportunity. The people will continue to be part of this. We have engaged our Institut des Technologies de l'Information et des Sociétés of the university. Gilles Rioux is here to take over the organization and make sure that we can deliver a good conference, but as well as, but as you know, a conference is as good as the people participating and the reflection and the scientific contribution. So again, we look forward to see you in Quebec. Thank you very much.